There are 7 mistakes that most people make when they start doing intermittent fasting. The first thing is they eat too much of a certain food when they come off their fasting routine. For example, they might start eating way too much peanut butter. They never ate that much before, but when they get on keto, they tend to eat a lot of peanut butter. And one of the challenges with peanut butter is that high level of aflatoxins. What is an aflatoxin? Well, that's a mold. And there are higher levels of aflatoxins in peanut butter, but it's also in cassava as well, because also sometimes people do the keto um, alternative chips or potato chips, which is cassava chips, and that also has higher levels of aflatoxins. They say it's well tolerated in adults more than children, which is a whole different topic. But with adults, if you're eating a lot of it over a long period of time, it can accumulate. It can irritate the liver and the gallbladder. Those are the two areas that this aflatoxin seems to irritate most. And if aflatoxins are very, very high, I mean, it can even create super oxidation of the liver and even necrosis, inflammation, cancer of the liver and the gallbladder. So it's just something to think about. If you're on the ketogenic diet and all of a sudden you feel like your liver is swollen or you have right shoulder pain or you feel more arthritic or there's something going on with your gallbladder, it could be all that peanut butter. There's a couple things that you can do to minimize that effect, okay, other than just avoiding peanut butter. One is consuming organic Valencia peanut butter. That type has lower levels of this mold. As well as consuming celery with the peanut butter, okay, because celery has a certain chemical that counters some of this aflatoxin. Peanut butter is not very high in nutrients. All right, the next thing is almond flour, okay? This is a big one because with keto, I mean, like almost every recipe includes almond flour, like the breads, the muffins, the cookies, these all have almond flour. Almonds are very high in oxalates, and so that can also irritate certain joints. It can irritate your digestive system. So it's another one to watch out for that can potentially influence your results when you start this fasting program. And I'm not telling you to avoid all nuts, like you could do walnuts, pecans, pistachios, and also a small amount of Brazilian nuts are fine. And then the last thing that people eat a lot of on the keto, especially when they get started, are all these keto bars or keto desserts, which has certain ingredients that I think is a problem. All the functional fibers, like the soluble corn fiber and tapioca fiber. And you might think, oh, it's a fiber, so it's not a sugar, but it can actually be a problem because there's no long term studies on that. There's also a lot of sugar alcohols that can disrupt your digestive system and give you a lot of gas, and it can affect your mood. So, again, I would just focus on like real food, like high quality meats and eggs and fish and vegetables, things like that. Number two is not combining keto with your intermittent fasting. You're doing intermittent fasting, but you're not then getting on the ketogenic diet. Your carbs are just too high. Now, that being said, something is better than nothing. And I think it's totally reasonable to go ahead and start with one of these, but eventually you'd want to actually add both of these powerful tools to get you in a place where you're getting all the benefits. In fact, going on low carb, okay, the keto plan can greatly get you into ketosis and make your fasting easier because your appetite and cravings are going to completely go away. So, in other words, I think you're going to really more than even double your benefits if you can do both of these. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is the pattern of your intermittent fasting. Probably the most common pattern is what's called 18 and 6, when you're fasting for 18 hours. And then you have a 6-hour eating window. So let's say, for example, your first meal was at 12 and your second meal was at 6. That would be an 18 to 6 ratio. When we talk about the eating window, it is true that you can pretty much eat during that window, but I would recommend not snacking between that window, having two meals, one at your 12 o'clock noon, right? And then fast all the way until 6 and have your second meal. So I wouldn't eat all the way and graze through that entire fasting window if I were you, because you would have more benefits if you just didn't eat anything. And there are a lot of different patterns, and you can test the different patterns and see what works for you. But just by observing tens of thousands of people doing this over the years, I would say if you're over the age of 50, you should really consider doing one meal a day. It's called OMAD. If you can do that, and just make sure it includes all the nutrients you need. And I have a lot of videos on that. But I think for everyone else, they should do two meals. Okay. And I'm going to tell you what really is successful, at least for me and a lot of others, is to try to go as long as you can with that first meal. Right around lunchtime, if you're not hungry, just ride the wave and go a little longer. And if you can go like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock or even 3 o'clock, that would be awesome. So just really pay attention to your hunger and your appetite, because if you're not hungry, ride the wave and go a little bit longer. And then that second meal, okay, try to do an early dinner. So a late lunch and an early dinner. And where I'm going with this is just to really shorten that eating window down to maybe 2 or 3 to 4 hours. Okay, that would be incredible, because then you would have more than 20 hours of fasting. Okay, that's huge. That is going to create some serious change with your brain, growing new brain cells, growing a new immune system, really helping your gut reset, because you're not eating and you're going to give your digestive system a chance to reset. You're going to stimulate more of the what's called the parasympathetic, which is the recovery. You're going to definitely sleep better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to have more support with your mitochondria. You're going to develop more antioxidants in your body. Your insulin is going to be less resistant. Okay. So that's going to heal. Your blood sugars are going to do much better. And your inflammatory conditions will go way down. If you could do that 20 hours, for me, a lot of times I like to eat at like 1 o'clock, sometimes 2. And then maybe I'll eat a dinner at 4 and 5. Now, am I hungry at 4 or 5? Usually not. But personally, if I do one meal a day, which I would like to do, I just lose too much weight. So I tend to spread those calories out in 2 meals, because if you're trying to maintain your weight or even gain weight with one meal a day, it's so hard. You'd have to eat so much food and you're going to feel really stuffed. But the point is, just think about this principle. Go as long as you can, have a late lunch, and then try to do an earlier dinner, okay, as early as you can. You're going to find if you do that, okay, you're going to sleep better, because the later you eat in the evening towards where you go to bed, the more it's going to affect your digestion, and that can affect your sleeping. All right, so that was number 3. Number 4 relates to what I just said, stuffing yourself. Sometimes people think that when they're fasting, they're starving. No, no, you're not starving. Your body is eating when it's not eating. It's eating your fat when you're not eating. So you're actually getting fuel. And in that stored fat, you have fat soluble vitamins too that are being released as well. So you're getting some nutrients as well. So it's not that you're not eating. You are eating. You're just eating your own fat. I just have found through a lot of trial and error, if you, especially in the beginning, like you, because you're fasting and you have this restriction on eating, a person tends to, it's kind of a scarcity. So they'll tend to eat as much as they can in that meal because, oh my gosh, am I going to make it to the next meal? You don't need to do that. Okay, experiment with it. You're going to feel a lot better if you don't stuff yourself. So this relates to the question, how many calories do I need? I wouldn't go by that. I would just go by, what do you feel comfortable with eating with that meal without overdoing it? And you know what I mean, overdoing it. I'm talking about, you feel so bloated, you're just stuffed, right? You just don't want to do that. All right, number 5. Okay, make sure that when you're doing intermittent fasting, you also take B vitamins and electrolytes. Why? Both of those categories of nutrients are of an increased demand, okay, when you do keto. When you get your body into fat burning and you're generating ketones, you do need certain minerals and certain B vitamins. I would make sure your B vitamins are more natural, and even you can get it from nutritional yeast. And also make sure when you do the electrolytes that you have something that's high quality with high enough amounts of potassium. And of course, when you're doing with electrolytes, make sure it has no hidden maltodextrin, and it has a good amount of potassium and the other electrolytes as well. Number 6 mistake is not doing the healthy version of the ketogenic diet. There's something called dirty keto, which you're pretty much, just going to any restaurant, fast food restaurant, and you're just like having the burger without the bun, but you're not focusing on quality. That's totally fine if you need to do that, okay? And especially if you're a college student and you can't afford the higher quality. But if you can afford it, it's worth it. Because think about it. When you're eating less meals, when you're doing intermittent fasting, you're going to be spending a little less money on food. Okay, you probably save several $100s per month. Reinvest that in higher quality of food that has more nutrient dense foods. And I'm talking about like the organic pasture raised eggs. I'm talking about wild caught fish and seafood. I'm talking about grass fed meats, things like that. And I'm talking about soil-based vegetables too, okay? Vegetables from the farmer's market, things like that, as compared to like the vegetables you'd get at the grocery store, like the lettuces that are grown in either hydroponic or it's not real soil, but it's something you can grow in and they just add the nutrients in there. That's not as good as what the soil can deliver to that plant. And the last mistake I think people make is stopping when they plateau, thinking that it's not working when it actually is. I can't tell you how many people that I've consulted that I come to find out they think it's not working because they're only losing 1 pound a week or they're not losing anything. But let's say you are just losing 1 pound a week. That's pretty good for the average person that is older. You have to realize that the most you can lose per week is 2 pounds. Initially, when you lose like 5 pounds, that's just water weight. And then you're going to have less and less until the point where you're just burning fat. There's always something you do to speed up the process. You can fast longer. You can do periodic prolonged fasting. You can cut your carbs lower. You can add exercise. You can sleep longer. You can reduce your stress. You can take certain additional remedies like berberine or cinnamon or things like that to improve insulin resistance. Because what can happen as you're losing weight, you're going through the healing process. And when you're going through the healing process, your muscles tend to grow more. And the way that you know that it's really working is that does your appetite go away? Okay. Do you no longer have cravings? That means it's working more than anything. And how is your energy and how is your mood? Focus on those things because the whole principle is that you have to get healthy first, then lose the weight versus the other way around. Now, because of the censoring and the suppressing of the algorithms on YouTube, it's becoming more difficult to find my content. And there's a lot of content that I cannot put on YouTube, unfortunately. So, to make sure you have full access of all my information, go to drberg.com and subscribe to my newsletter by clicking the link down below in the description. I will see you on the other side. Now, to give you the details on how to do intermittent fasting, you should watch this video right here.